0347 hours, Gulf of Venezuela, 92 nautical miles northwest of Puerto Cabello. The S-31 Sabalo slipped beneath the thermocline at 400 feet, her diesel engines cold and silent. 38 men breathed recycled air that tasted like copper and sweat. They had been submerged for 19 hours, waiting. Captain Ernesto Vargas pressed his face against the periscope housing, watching the passive sonar display paint a picture of death. 14 kilometers to the northeast, a wall of sound moved through the water. Propeller cavitation from multiple screws, the unmistakable acoustic signature of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier. The USS George Washington. This was supposed to be impossible. American carriers never operated this close to Venezuelan waters, but satellite intelligence confirmed it 3 days ago. The George Washington had diverted from her southern seas. Deployment heading north through the Caribbean. Her strike group stretched thin across 200 nautical miles. Vargas checked his fire control solution one final time. 2 SST-4 torpedoes loaded in tubes, 1 and 2, German-made, wire-guided, capable of running 20 nautical miles at 23 knots. His orders were explicit: fire, then run. What Caracas failed to mention was that the George Washington never travels alone. If this story grips you, hit subscribe now. You will not want to miss what happens next. 12 hours earlier, a Boeing P-8 Poseidon had lifted off from Naval Air Station Jacksonville, call sign Hunter 71. The aircraft climbed to 28,000 feet and settled into a patrol orbit 300 miles northeast of Venezuela. Her crew of 9 began seeding the ocean with sonobuoys. 112 acoustic sensors dropped in a grid pattern spanning 40 square miles. Passive buoys listening for machinery noise, active buoys pinging and waiting for echoes, multi-static arrays creating overlapping fields of coverage that could detect a submarine breathing. At 01:15, the first contact appeared, a faint diesel signature matching a Type 209 submarine. The operators tracked it for 6 minutes before confirming S-31 Sabalo, bearing 273, speed 4 knots, depth 350 feet. The P-8 transmitted the contact to the carrier strike group on encrypted data link. Within seconds, the information reached the Combat Information Center aboard the USS Porter, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer positioned 12 nautical miles off the George Washington's starboard beam. Commander Jennifer Walsh studied the tactical display. The submarine was attempting a classic approach, riding the thermal layer to mask her signature while creeping toward torpedo range. Textbook Cold War maneuver. The problem for Captain Vargas was simple. Cold War tactics do not work against 21st century sensors. Walsh ordered her ship to general quarters. The ANSQ-89 anti-submarine warfare suite came alive. Hull-mounted sonar began active pinging while the TB-37 towed array dropped below the thermocline. Now the Americans could look up at the submarine from below. The shadow zone had become a spotlight. At 03:22, 2 MH-60 Romeo Seahawk helicopters lifted off from the Porter's flight deck. Each carried 4 Mark 54 lightweight torpedoes and a dipping sonar capable of reaching depths the Venezuelan submarine could not escape. The trap was set. All that remained was waiting for Vargas to pull the trigger. Inside the Sabalo, the atmosphere had shifted. Sweat dripped from overhead pipes. The sonar operator reported a new contact, helicopter rotors, then another and another. 3 helicopters circling at medium altitude, dipping sonars, probing the depths like surgical instruments. Vargas felt the first cold needle of doubt. 3 helicopters meant detection. Standard American doctrine called for 2 helicopters per submarine contact. 3 meant they were taking no chances. He checked the range to the carrier, 14,000 yards. Outside optimal torpedo envelope, the SST-4 could reach that distance, but wire guidance became unreliable beyond 10,000 yards. The torpedo would go autonomous, swimming blind toward a target protected by the most sophisticated defenses at sea. His executive officer leaned close. "Captain, the Americans know we are here." Vargas nodded slowly. 2 choices: abort the mission and attempt to withdraw, or fire now and accept the consequences. Caracas had made the political calculation. He was expected to make the military one. At 03:48, Captain Ernesto Vargas Ordered tubes 1 and 2 flooded. The rushing water echoed through the submarine like a death rattle. Firing a torpedo is not quiet. The compressed air ejection creates an acoustic transient traveling through water at 3,300 miles per hour. To the hydrophones aboard the Porter, it sounded like a cannon shot. Torpedo in the water, bearing 273, range 12,000 yards. Commander Walsh had 43 seconds to react. She did not need them all. The ANSLQ-25 Nixie deployed from the destroyer's stern, a towed decoy that mimicked the acoustic signature of the ship's propellers, amplified, irresistible. The Venezuelan torpedo's guidance system detected 2 targets. It chose the louder one. Simultaneously, the Porter's Mark 32 torpedo tubes fired. 2 Mark 54 lightweight torpedoes entered the water, their active seekers immediately acquiring the Sabalo's hull. Above, Hunter 7-1 dropped 3 additional sonobuoys to refine the solution. The P-8's tactical coordinator watched converging tracks on his display. Venezuelan torpedo chasing the decoy east, American torpedoes closing on the submarine west. The geometry was merciless. Captain Vargas heard the incoming torpedoes before his sonar operator reported them, a high-pitched whine growing louder with each passing second. Active seekers pinging off the hull, searching, confirming, locking. He ordered emergency speed. The Sabalo's electric motor pushed the submarine to 21 knots. Maximum velocity. The American Mark 54 torpedoes were closing at 40 knots. Mathematics does not negotiate. At 0351, the first torpedo struck the Sabalo's stern. The shaped charge warhead contained 44 pounds of explosive. It detonated against the pressure hull at 370 feet, where water pressure exceeded 160 pounds per square inch. The explosion opened a 12-foot gash in the engine room. Seawater rushed in at 90,000 gallons per minute. The submarine's angle steepened to 45 degrees as flooding shifted center of gravity aft. Emergency blow systems activated, forcing high-pressure air into the ballast tanks. It was not enough. The second torpedo arrived 11 seconds later, striking amidships. The combined damage was catastrophic. The Sabalo's hull collapsed at 420 feet, killing all 38 crew instantly. Total engagement time from torpedo launch to destruction, 3 minutes and 14 seconds. The Venezuelan torpedo continued chasing the Nixie decoy for another 6,000 yards before its wire guidance detected the lost connection. It switched to autonomous mode, circled twice, then exhausted its fuel and sank. Cost of the decoy, $87,000. Cost of the submarine it defeated, $160 million. But the Sabalo was not alone, and the worst was just beginning. What happens when 18 missile boats try to swarm an aircraft carrier? The answer will shock you. Like and subscribe so you do not miss Part 2. September 23rd, 2025, 03:55 hours. Gulf of Venezuela, aboard the USS George Washington. 3 minutes earlier, the Venezuelan submarine Sabalo had fired 2 torpedoes at the American carrier. Now she lay crushed on the ocean floor at 420 feet, 38 men dead in a submarine that never had a chance. But the Sabalo was not alone. Radar operators aboard the George Washington detected a new threat. 18 small surface contacts approaching from the southeast at 42 knots. Venezuelan Peykaap-III missile boats, Iranian-designed fast attack craft armed with C-802 anti-ship missiles. This was the second phase, voice of Operation Bolivarian Thunder, and while the submarine drew attention, the missile boats would close to launch range under cover of darkness. A swarm attack designed to overwhelm the carrier's defenses with sheer numbers. The plan had one fatal flaw. The Americans had satellite coverage of Puerto Cabello Harbor. They had watched the missile boat's sortie 12 hours earlier. If this story grips you, hit subscribe now. You will not want to miss what happens next. The USS Gravely, a Flight 2A Arleigh Burke destroyer positioned 40 nautical miles south of the carrier, had been tracking the flotilla since it crossed into international waters. Her Aegis combat system held firing solutions on all 18 contacts. The only question was when to engage. At 04:02, the Venezuelan formation reached 50 nautical miles from the carrier. maximum range for the C-802 missile. Lead boats began active radar targeting. This was the commitment point, no turning back. The Gravely's captain watched the radar picture illuminate with threat symbols. Missile boats splitting into two attack groups. Flanking maneuver, classic Soviet doctrine adapted for Caribbean geography. He pressed the weapons release authorization. 96 vertical launch cells opened simultaneously. 16 RIM 162 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles roared into the pre-dawn sky, their rocket motors burning white-hot against the darkness. Each missile tracked a separate target. The Aegis system coordinated the engagement automatically, adjusting trajectories in real time to maximize kill probability. The Venezuelan boat commanders had approximately 8 seconds to understand what was happening. They never got the chance to respond. The first Sea Sparrow struck at 04:03 and 11 seconds. A 38-foot missile boat traveling at 42 knots disintegrated into burning debris scattered across 200 meters of ocean. The second hit followed 1.4 seconds later, then the third, then a cascade of explosions that turned the southeastern horizon into a wall of fire. 14 boats destroyed in the first salvo. 4 survivors attempted to reverse course, 2 eliminated by follow-up missiles. The remaining pair fled south at maximum speed, transmitting frantic distress calls to Caracas. No Venezuelan weapon reached launch parameters. The C-802 missiles remained in their tubes, cooked off by the fires consuming their platforms. Total engagement time 47 seconds. American casualties 0. By 04:30, the George Washington's Combat Air Patrol had established a protective barrier across the northern approaches. 4 FA-18 Super Hornets flying racetrack patterns at 25,000 feet. Their APG-79 radars scanned the Venezuelan coastline for any additional threats. There were none. Operation Bolivarian Thunder had exhausted its resources in a single catastrophic engagement. 1 submarine, 18 missile boats, 312 sailors all lost in under an hour. The cost analysis was devastating. Venezuela committed $620 million in military assets. The American response consumed $43 million, a 14-to-1 ratio that would haunt Caracas for decades. At 06:15, the George Washington resumed her transit north. Her air wing continued flight operations as if nothing had happened. The carrier had not altered course, had not increased speed, had not even launched additional defensive aircraft. The truth was simple. The George Washington was never in danger. The carrier's defensive layers began 300 miles from the ship. P-8 Poseidons providing persistent surveillance, submarines lurking beneath the thermocline, destroyers and cruisers forming overlapping fields of sensor coverage. By the time any threat reached the carrier itself, it had already been detected, tracked, classified, and assigned to a weapons system for destruction. Captain Vargas had believed he was the hunter. He was wrong. From the moment the Sabalo left port, every system in the American arsenal had been watching, listening, waiting. The Venezuelan government announced the losses. 3 days later, state television blamed American aggression. The international community responded with skepticism. Satellite imagery showed the Sabalo's torpedo tubes flooded. At the moment of destruction, the attack had been real. The response overwhelming in Washington. Analysts compiled the after-action report, 17 pages, concluding with a single observation. Venezuela attempted a surprise attack against the most defended warship on Earth. The result was never in doubt. The numbers told the story: $620 million in Venezuelan losses, $43 million in American expenditure, 312 Venezuelan dead, 0 American casualties, 1 Type 209 submarine sent to the bottom, 16 missile boats reduced to floating debris, and 1 Nimitz-class aircraft carrier continuing her mission without interruption. This was the reality of modern naval warfare. A diesel submarine from the 1970s had challenged a battle network designed to defeat peer adversaries like China and Russia. The outcome was predetermined before the first torpedo left its tube. Some theorists argue asymmetric warfare can defeat superior technology, that small nations can bloody superpowers through clever tactics. The Gulf of Venezuela proved them wrong. There is no clever tactic against a sensor network tracking you from the moment you sortie. No acceptable loss ratio when your attack force is annihilated in 47 seconds. No moral victory in sending 300 men to die for nothing. The George Washington steamed on toward her next port of call. Her crew filed reports and cleaned weapons and resumed the routine of life aboard a floating city. By dinner, the engagement was already becoming a footnote. Another exercise in American naval dominance, but somewhere in Caracas, military planners stared at empty chairs. They studied satellite photos of wreckage. They calculated the cost of replacing 18 missile boats and a submarine representing half their undersea capability, and they learned the lesson every nation must eventually understand. You do not pick a fight with an aircraft carrier. You do not challenge the most sophisticated naval force in human history with Cold War equipment and Soviet tactics. Because when you attack the wrong ship, you do not get a second chance to reconsider. The oceans remember every miscalculation. The Gulf of Venezuela remembers 312 men who followed orders into a trap they never saw closing. If this story showed you the reality of modern naval warfare, share it with someone who needs to understand. Like and subscribe so you never miss the next battle that shapes our world.